Can we help to give John Kennedy a voice? To write his history as he would have written it? I think we owe it to him to try. And certainly he deserves better than the fairy tale put forward by the government and commonly referred to as the single bullet theory. The FBI and the Warren Commission concluded that Oswald, or anyone else shooting with this rifle, could only have fired 3 shots in the 6 seconds during which the shooting took place. Since the first shot missed, that means, except for Kennedy's head wound, all the other wounds to Kennedy and all the wounds to Governor Connally sitting in front of him had to have been caused by a single bullet. This anti-conspiracy theory, that there was only one shooter, is completely dependent upon this single bullet theory. The anti-conspiracy theory says that this second bullet entered the president's back headed downward at an angle of 17 degrees. Then, while inside the president's body, the bullet reversed directions and moved upward, necessarily piercing and exiting Kennedy's spine, a major bone structure, in order to leave the president's body from the front of his neck. According to the official theory, the bullet then waited 1.6 seconds, presumably in midair, before turning right, and then left. The bullet then headed downward at an angle of now 27 degrees, shattering Connally's 5th rib and exiting from the same side of his chest. The bullet then turned right again and struck Governor Connally in his right wrist, shattering the radius bone. The bullet then exited Connally's wrist, made a dramatic U-turn, and buried itself into Connally's left thigh, from which, according to the official theory, it later fell out and was found in absolutely perfect condition, without a trace of blood on it, in a corridor of Parkland Memorial Hospital, on a stretcher that was not in any way connected with the case.
The bullet was found here in this area, and not on that stretcher. That's the stretcher I took off the elevator. It was there when I came up.
That is some bullet, with even more magical qualities. You see, large bullet fragments were removed from Connally's leg and wrist. These are the fragments from his wrist. But the bullet that was found on the hospital stretcher was completely undamaged and was not missing any fragments. But we're not done with this bullet yet. Do you remember this guy?
At the National Archives in Washington, Dr. Cyril Wecht, former head of the American Academy of Forensic Sciences, examined bullets the Warren Commission had test-fired. To find out if a bullet could break so many bones and remain apparently intact, the Commission used a rifle similar to Oswald's.
And then they got these bullets, all 6.5 millimeter. And they test-fired, first into cotton wadding. These 2 bullets were fired into cotton wadding, striking nothing. You will note that these bullets both have a minimal degree of protrusion of the lead at the base. Otherwise, they are intact, which is what you would expect. The next bullet broke 1 rib of a goat carcass. Notice, please, its widening. This bullet struck one of the 2 large bones that come down from the elbow to the wrist in a human cadaver. They wanted to simulate the fracture of that same bone in Governor Connally. Please note the substantial deformity. This is classical, typical, when a bullet strikes a dense, heavy bone or some other very firm object. Now, I want you to look at the so-called stretcher bullet. This bullet is the actual bullet that the Warren Commission claims broke both John Connally's right 5th rib, destroying 4 inches of that bone, pulverizing it, and which caused a comminuted or an extensively fragmented fracture of a dense, heavy bone down near the base of the wrist, and emerged in this condition. You will see that it is near pristine. As a matter of fact, its nose, the cone, the sides of the bullet are completely intact and unscathed. It has only minimal protrusion of the lead core at the base, in the same fashion that the 2 bullets did that had been fired in the test wadding. That's from the impact of the firing mechanism.
Without this single bullet explanation, the government can't possibly explain how one lone assassin could have caused all these wounds. But once you conclude that no single bullet could have created all these wounds, you have to conclude that there was at least a 4th shot. But Oswald could not possibly have fired that 4th shot, so that means a second rifle. And if there was a second rifleman, then by definition there had to have been a conspiracy.